They ignored the man who walked in holding old papers, assuming he was lost, until he calmly said, "The deed is here, sir." When the millionaire laughed and waved him off, the man's hands began to tremble, and as the room realized who he truly was, everyone froze, and the silence became unbearable. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and comment where in the world you're watching from, because now I'm going to tell you everything. The air in the restaurant was so cold it made Leo's skin prickle. He stood just inside the door, the weight of the old papers in his hands feeling heavier than anything he had ever carried. At the big table in the middle of the empty room, a man with silver hair laughed loudly. He held a glass of golden drink. A tired-looking big man in an apron and a young woman with a kind face stood nearby, not laughing. The silver-haired man noticed Leo. His smile stayed on his face, but his eyes were like two small stones. "Can we help you, son?" he asked. His voice was smooth, the way people talk to a dog they don't know. Leo did not answer. He walked forward. His sneakers were silent on the shiny floor. He stopped right at the edge of the rich man's table. "I need to talk to you," Leo said. His voice did not shake. The man's smile turned into a smirk. He put his glass down. "I'm a little busy. This is a private party. Run along." "My name is Leo Finch," Leo said. He held out the bundle of papers. They were brown at the edges and felt like they could crumble to dust. "This building belongs to my family." The room went very quiet. The big man in the apron, Walter, took a step closer. He peered at the papers in Leo's hand. His eyes grew wide. The silver-haired man let out a short, sharp laugh. It was not a happy sound. "Is that right? And I suppose you have a magic wand in your pocket too?" He looked at the woman, Maria, and shrugged as if sharing a joke. She was not smiling. She was looking at the faint yellow and purple mark on Leo's cheekbone. "It's not a joke," Leo said. He placed the papers carefully on the table in front of the man. "It's a deed. My great-grandfather, Alastair Finch, built this place. It says here that if his family comes with this paper on their 12th birthday, it comes back to them. Today is my 12th birthday." The man, Mr. Vandergriff, stopped smiling. He picked up the top paper, his fingers careful not to tear it. He read it. His face slowly changed. The friendly mask melted away, leaving something hard and angry. Walter the chef was staring at Leo. "Finch?" he whispered. "Eleanor's boy?" Leo looked at him and nodded once. "You know this kid, Walter?" Mr. Vandergriff's voice was low and cold. "I knew his family," Walter said. His voice was rough. "A long time ago, Alastair. He was a good man. This was his place." Mr. Vandergriff stood up, his chair scraping loudly. He looked down at Leo. "Where did you get this?" "My grandmother gave me a key before she died. She told me to open a trunk today. The deed was inside." "Your grandmother sold this building to me," Mr. Vandergriff said. He said each word slowly and clearly. "She sold it. It's mine." "You made her sell it when she was sick," Leo said. He didn't shout. He just stated it. "She was scared. You didn't pay her much. She told me." Mr. Vandergriff's eyes flashed. He looked from Leo's serious face to Walter's pale one, to Maria's worried one. He picked up the brittle deed. "This," he said, "is nothing." He pulled his hands apart. The old paper tore down the middle with a dry, sad sound. Maria gasped. Walter made a choked sound in his throat. Leo didn't move. He just watched the two pieces flutter to the table. Then he reached into the pocket of his thin hoodie. He pulled out a small, cheap phone. The screen was lit. "I recorded you doing that," Leo said. His voice was still quiet, but it filled the silent room. "And that's just a copy. My friend at the library helped me make copies. The real one is somewhere safe." Mr. Vandergriff stared at the little phone. For the first time, he looked at Leo not like a stray dog, but like a real person. A dangerous person. Walter cleared his throat. He stepped forward, placing his big body between Leo and Mr. Vandergriff. "I worked for Alastair Finch," he said. "I remember that clause in the deed. Everyone thought it was an old story, but it's right there. I'll say so in any court you want." Maria moved to stand beside Leo. She didn't touch him, but she was close. "I saw it all too," she said to Mr. Vandergriff. Her voice was firm. "I'm a witness." Mr. Vandergriff looked at the three of them, the old chef, the young waitress, and the bruised, silent boy. His money and his power were in this room, but they were suddenly alone. He smoothed his suit jacket, his fingers straightening a cufflink. "This isn't over," he said, his voice a soft threat. "You have no idea what you've started, boy." He turned and walked out of the restaurant, leaving the torn papers on the table. The door shut with a final click. The cold air of the restaurant seemed to settle. Leo finally breathed. His hands were clenched tight in his pockets, his fingers wrapped around a smooth, cool river stone. Maria was the first to speak. She knelt down so she was at his eye level. "Are you okay?" Leo nodded, but he didn't trust his voice. Walter walked over and carefully picked up the two halves of the copied deed. "He's going to fight dirty, Leo." "I know," Leo said. "You don't have to do this alone," Maria said. "Not anymore." Leo looked at the big, kind-faced chef and the waitress with the honest eyes. He had been alone for so long. He wanted to believe them, but the fear was a knot in his stomach. Mr. Vandergriff had lawyers and money. Leo had a piece of paper and a memory. But as he stood in the empty restaurant his great-grandfather built for the first time, he had something else. He had two people who believed him, and that was a place to start. The heavy door clicked shut behind Mr. Vandergriff. The sound seemed to echo in the cold, empty restaurant for a long time. No one moved. Leo's heart was beating very fast in his chest. He looked at the two halves of the paper on the table. Walter let out a long, slow breath. He walked over and picked up the pieces with great care. He held them together, his big, scarred fingers gentle. He was reading the faded writing. "This is it," Walter said, his voice full of wonder. "I haven't seen this in more than 40 years. Maria looked from Walter to Leo. "Is it real? Really real?" "It's real," Walter said. He pointed to a mark at the bottom of the paper. It was a round stamp in old wax, pressed with a fancy letter F. "That's Alistair Finch's seal. I'd know it anywhere. He used it on all his important papers." He then pointed to a flowing signature. "And that's his handwriting, Alistair Finch." Leo stepped closer. "My grandmother said he built this place." "He did," Walter said, a softness in his tired eyes. "He called it Finch's Landing. It wasn't this shiny. It was warm. It had good food and people laughing. He was a kind man." Walter looked at Leo's face. "You have his eyes." Maria touched the edge of one torn paper. "What does this special rule say? The one Leo talked about?" Walter's finger moved down the page. "Right here. It says, 'The title to this property shall revert to a direct descendant of the undersigned, Alistair Finch, upon said descendant's presentation of this document on the day they attain the age of 12 years. He looked up at Leo. "That means when a child of his family brings this paper on their 12th birthday, the building goes back to them, no matter who owns it." "Today is my birthday," Leo said quietly. "I know," Walter said. He looked sad. "So it was your grandmother, Eleanor. She was Alistair's daughter. She used to come here as a little girl. She loved the kitchen." "You knew her?" Leo asked. "I did. She was a good person. When Alistair died, she tried to keep this place going. But it was hard." Walter's shoulders slumped. "Then she got sick. That's when Vandergriff came around. He offered her money. She was scared and needed help. The price he paid, it was wrong. It was almost nothing. I saw them talk. She was crying. I should have said something then. I am so sorry, Leo." Leo didn't know what to say. He felt a hot pressure behind his eyes, but he didn't cry. He shoved his hands deeper into his pockets. Maria broke the silence. "So that paper makes Leo the owner, right now?" "According to this, yes," Walter said. "But Vandergriff will fight. He has lawyers. They will say the paper is fake. They will say the rule is not legal. They will try to confuse everything." "I have the real deed," Leo said. "He only tore the copy." "Where is it?" Maria asked. Leo shook his head. "I can't say. It's safe. If I don't tell anyone, no one can take it from me or make me tell where it is." Walter nodded slowly. "That's smart. You keep that secret." He looked around the empty restaurant. "He wants to tear all this down, build some big hotel. He doesn't care about this place. He only cares about money." "We have to stop him," Maria said. She put a hand on Leo's thin shoulder. "We will help you." Leo looked up at her. People didn't just help, not for free. "Why?" he asked. The word came out harsher than he meant. Maria didn't seem upset. Because what he did to your grandmother was wrong. What he just did to you, tearing that paper, that was wrong. And someone has to stand up to a bully. Walter placed the two torn pieces together on the table like a puzzle. Your great-grandfather gave me my first real job. He taught me how to make a roux, how to treat people right. Letting Vandergrift win, it would be like spitting on Alistair's grave, and I've been quiet for too long. Leo felt the smooth stone in his pocket. He thought of his grandmother's voice. Asterisk. Be brave, Leo. Brave felt like having two strangers standing beside you in a cold, empty room. Okay, Leo said. It was just one word, but it felt big. Maria gave his shoulder a little squeeze. Okay. First, we need to get these pieces someplace safe too. And we need to think. Vandergrift will be back, and he won't be alone. Walter looked toward the door, his face grim. He'll come with lawyers, or the police, or both. We need to be ready. Leo stared at the torn deed on the table. It was just old paper, but it was everything. It was his family. It was his only chance for a home that couldn't be taken away. The first battle was over. The war was just beginning. The quiet in the restaurant was broken by the sudden buzz of Walter's phone on the counter. He jumped, then sighed. It's the alarm company, he said, looking at the screen. They do a check-in call every night. I'll tell them everything's fine. He walked a few steps away to answer. Maria carefully placed the two halves of the copied deed into a large plastic bag. This is still proof, she said to Leo. Even torn, you can read it. Leo just nodded. He was listening to something else. Footsteps on the sidewalk outside. They were sharp and fast, getting louder. Then they stopped at the door. The handle turned. The door opened. Mr. Vandergrift walked back in. He was not alone. A younger man in a neat suit followed him. The man carried a thin black briefcase. I thought you might still be here, Vandergrift said. His voice was calm now, too calm. He looked at Walter, who was hanging up the phone. Walter, Maria, you can both go home. This does not involve you. Walter walked back to stand beside Leo. I think it does. The man in the suit stepped forward. He had a small, polite smile. My name is Mr. Reed. I am Mr. Vandergrift's attorney. We're here to clear up this misunderstanding. He looked at Leo. You must be Leo. It's very late for a young man to be out. Where are your parents? I live with foster parents, Leo said. He kept his hands in his pockets. I see, Mr. Reed said. He opened his briefcase and took out a single sheet of crisp white paper. This is a simple statement. It says that the document you presented here tonight is a fake, a copy of a movie prop perhaps. It says you made a mistake. You sign this and we can all forget this ever happened. No trouble for you, no trouble for your friends here. He held the paper out with a pen. Leo did not take it. It's not a fake. Vandergrift's calm mask slipped. Listen, kid. You are playing a game you cannot win. I will bury you in paperwork. I will make your life a nightmare. You will wish you never walked in here. You already tore up my copy, Leo said. He looked at the lawyer. Did he tell you that? I have it on my phone, him tearing it up. Mr. Reed's smile didn't change. A minor dispute over a piece of paper. The real property deed is filed with the city. It has my client's name on it. Your home video does not change that. But the special rule does, Walter said, his voice loud. The reverter clause. It's on the original deed, it's legal. An old clause that may not hold up in court, Mr. Reed said smoothly. It would take years and a lot of money to argue about it. Money a child in foster care does not have. Maria spoke up. He's not alone. Mr. Reed finally looked at her, his eyes cool. Miss, I would think about your job. And Walter, your position here. Choosing the wrong side could have consequences. It was a clear threat. Leo felt it. He saw Walter's jaw tighten. He saw Maria lift her chin. I have more than one copy of the deed, Leo said. He needed them to look at him, not at his friends. The real one is safe. A lawyer will believe it when they see it. My grandmother told me everything. How you pressured her. How you paid her almost nothing because she was sick. Vandergrift's face turned a dark red. You have no proof of that. I do, Walter said, crossing his big arms. I was there. I saw it. I'll tell the judge. I'll tell the newspaper. A muscle in Mr. Reed's cheek twitched. He put the unsigned statement back in his briefcase. This is unfortunate. If you will not be reasonable, then we will have to proceed through formal channels. You will be served with legal papers. A court will order you to stop this charade. Let them, Leo said. Vandergrift stared at him with pure hatred. He leaned down, putting his face closer to Leo's. This building will be dust, and you will have nothing. Remember I told you that. He turned and stormed out. Mr. Reed gave them one last measured look, then followed. The door closed again. This time, the silence felt heavier. They're going to sue you, Maria said, her voice hushed, or try to get a court to stop you. Leo's bravado faded. His shoulders slumped. He was just a boy. He didn't know what being served with legal papers meant, but it sounded scary. Walter put a heavy hand on his back. We'll figure it out, one step at a time. He threatened your jobs, Leo whispered. Let him try, Maria said, but she looked worried. Tomorrow, Walter said, we find you a lawyer, a real one, someone who can look at that deed and tell us what to do next. Leo pulled his grandmother's river rock from his pocket. He held its cool, smooth surface tight. He had started this. Now, because of him, Walter and Maria were in danger. The fear was a cold lump in his stomach, but giving up meant Vandergrift won. It meant his grandmother's story was forgotten. He put the rock back in his pocket. Okay, he said, tomorrow. 3 days later, the envelope came. It was thick and official, addressed to Leonard Finch, a minor. It was left with Leo's foster mother, Mrs. Clark. She handed it to him at the kitchen table. Her face was pinched with worry. A man in a suit dropped this off. He said it was important. What is this about, Leo? Leo's fingers felt numb. He opened the envelope. There were many pages covered in small, dense print. The words were long and confusing. He saw his name. He saw Vandergrift Holdings, LLC. He saw cease and desist and legal action and financial penalties. It's from a lawyer, Leo said quietly. Mr. Clark looked over his newspaper. What did you do? I didn't do anything wrong, Leo said, but his voice wavered. He pointed to a line. It says I have to stop claiming I own a building downtown, or they will sue me. Sue you? Mrs. Clark put a hand to her chest. Leo, you're 12 years old. What building? The old restaurant, Vandergrift's Prime. It belonged to my great-grandfather. I have the paper that says so. Mr. Clark put his paper down. That's a fancy place. You can't just say you own it. You'll get into real trouble. We'll get into trouble. They could call social services. They could say we're not taking care of you right. I have proof, Leo insisted. But the legal words on the pages swam in front of his eyes. They felt like a trap. Proof or not, you can't fight a rich man's lawyers, Mr. Clark said. It's not smart. You need to drop this. Tell them you're sorry and it was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake, Leo said, but the fear was rising in his throat, making it hard to speak. Please, Leo, Mrs. Clark said, her voice pleading. We provide a safe home for you. This kind of trouble, we can't have it here. You need to let this go. They weren't yelling. They were just scared. Their fear made Leo feel completely alone. He took the heavy papers and went to his small room. He sat on his bed and tried to read them again. The words court costs and liable for damages jumped out at him. What if they made him pay money? He had no money. What if they took him away from here? Where would he go? He waited until the Clarks were watching television in the living room. Then he slipped out the back door. He walked fast, his hood up, the legal papers stuffed inside his jacket. It took him 45 minutes to walk downtown to the restaurant. The closed sign was on the door, but he knocked. A moment later, Walter unlocked it and let him in. The dining room was dark, chairs up on the tables. Leo? What's wrong? Walter asked. Maria came out from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. Wordlessly, Leo pulled out the crumpled legal papers and handed them to Walter. Walter put on his reading glasses. Maria read over his shoulder. Her eyes got bigger with each line. This is a threat, Walter grumbled. A fancy, official threat. They want to scare you into quitting. It's working, Leo whispered. He looked at the floor. My foster parents are scared. They want me to stop. They said I could get taken away. What if the court makes me pay money? I don't have any money. Maria knelt down in front of him. Look at me, Leo. This is what he does. He uses scary words on paper to make people give up. He thinks you're just a kid and you'll be too frightened to fight." "I am frightened," Leo admitted, his cheeks burning with shame. "Of course you are," Walter said, putting the papers down. "Anyone would be. But you are not alone. We are not giving up." "But your jobs," Leo said. "Let us worry about that," Maria said firmly. "We promised to help you. We meant it." Walter nodded. "Tomorrow we find you a lawyer. Not his lawyer, your lawyer. Someone who can read this junk and tell them where to go. We'll explain about the deed, about the clause." "How?" Leo asked. "Lawyers cost a lot of money." Walter and Maria looked at each other. "We'll figure that out too," Walter said. "Maybe there's someone who will help for less money. Or maybe we can get some advice first, one step at a time." Leo looked at their determined faces. In his foster home, he was a problem to be managed. Here, he was a person they were fighting for. The cold knot of fear in his stomach was still there, but it was smaller. He wasn't by himself. "Okay," Leo said, taking a deep breath. "Okay," Maria echoed with a small smile. "First step, a lawyer of your own." The lawyer's office was on the 3rd floor of an old building. His name was Mr. Sanderson. He had agreed to a quick meeting after Maria called and explained a little of the situation. He listened as Leo, Walter, and Maria all talked. He looked at the torn copy of the deed. He looked at the legal papers from Vandergrift's lawyer. Then he took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "This reverter clause is unusual," Mr. Sanderson said, "but not illegal. If the original deed is real and the clause is valid, young man, you might have a claim." Leo felt a tiny spark of hope. "Might?" Walter asked. "It's not simple," the lawyer said. "Mr. Vandergrift's lawyers will argue the clause is expired. They will argue the original sale to him was final. They have filed papers to have Leo's claim thrown out of court quickly. To stop that, we need to show the court this is a serious matter. We need more than just this old deed copy." "What kind of proof?" Maria asked. "Proof that the original sale was problematic," Mr. Sanderson said carefully. "Proof that shows why the Finch family would have such a clause. Proof of the building's history. Anything that supports your story." He looked at Leo. "The court will see a wealthy businessman on one side and a foster child on the other. We need to make them see the truth behind it." "I can tell them what I saw," Walter said firmly. "That will help," Mr. Sanderson said. "But memories from years ago are one thing. Paper proof is another." Leo thought of his grandmother's stories. She said it was in the newspaper when her father built it. And maybe when it was sold? Mr. Sanderson nodded. "That's a good place to start. The public library has archives of the local paper on microfilm. You can look there." "We'll go," Maria said immediately. Mr. Sanderson's face was kind but serious. "I have to be honest, my normal fee is very high. I cannot take this case for free. But for now, this advice is no charge. If you find strong proof, come back and see me. We can talk about what to do next." The tiny spark in Leo's chest flickered. Even help cost money they didn't have. They left the office and stood on the sidewalk. The afternoon sun was hot. "We'll find the proof first," Walter said, trying to sound confident. "Then we'll worry about the rest." The Baton Rouge Public Library was cool and quiet. A woman with glasses and a friendly smile sat at the research desk. Her name tag said, Annette. "We're looking for old newspapers," Maria explained, "from maybe the 1950s and from about 8 years ago." "We have microfilm for that," Annette said. She led them to a machine with a big screen. She showed them how to load the film reels and how to search. "What names should I look for?" "Finch," Leo said. "Alistair Finch, or Finch's Landing." "And Vandergrift," Walter added quietly. "Ellis Vandergrift, about 8 years back." Annette wrote the names down. "I'll pull the right reels for you. Start with the Finch name. It will take some time to look through." For the next hour, they took turns. Walter would turn the wheel, old black and white pages scrolling by on the screen. They saw ads for old cars. They saw headlines about presidents. Then, Walter stopped. "There," he said. The headline read, "Finch's Landing opens its doors." The photo showed a smiling man with a kind face standing in front of a restaurant. It was a younger, happier version of the building they knew. "That's him," Walter whispered, a catch in his voice. "That's Alistair." Leo stared at the face of his great-grandfather. He felt a connection, thin but strong, stretching back through time. Annette brought another reel. This one was more recent. Maria took over, scrolling more carefully. Then she gasped. "Leo, look." The headline was small, in the business section. "Historic riverfront property sold." The article was only a few paragraphs. Maria read it out softly. "The Finch building on River Road has been sold to local developer Ellis Vandergriff. The property, a longtime restaurant, was sold by Eleanor Finch. The sale price is reported to be $150,000. Walter made a choking sound. $150,000? That's nothing. The land alone is worth 20 times that now. Even then it was worth more. He stole it." Leo looked at the dry words on the screen. Here it was. Proof that his grandmother, sick and scared, had been given almost nothing for her family's legacy. The unfairness of it burned in his stomach. "We need copies of these," Maria said, her voice tight with anger. Annette helped them print the two articles. As they gathered the papers, the librarian looked at them with curious sympathy. "Is everything all right?" "It will be," Maria said, handing the precious printouts to Leo. "We're just starting to make it right." They walked out into the late afternoon. Leo held the copies of the old article and the new one. They were just pieces of paper, but they felt heavy. They were not just history. They were weapons. The next morning, the restaurant felt different. Walter moved through the kitchen slowly. He had just finished prepping the lunch special when the back door opened. It was Carl, the general manager. Carl's face was pale. "Walter, can I see you in the office for a minute?" Walter wiped his hands on his apron and followed. He knew before Carl even spoke. "It's not my call, Walt," Carl said, not meeting his eyes. "It comes from upstairs, from Mr. Vandergriff himself. They're letting you go, effective immediately." Walter felt the words like a physical blow. "Letting me go? After 8 years? Why?" "They say it's a restructuring of the kitchen staff, but we both know that's not true." Carl's voice was low. "He knows you're helping the Finch boy. He told me to tell you that if you walk away from the kid, you can have your job back next week." Walter was quiet for a long moment. This job paid his rent. It paid his bills. He was not a young man. "No," he finally said, his voice a low rumble. "Walter, think about it. I have thought about it. I should have done this a long time ago." Walter untied his apron for the last time. He laid it on Carl's desk. "You tell him no." An hour later, Maria was setting tables in the empty dining room. Rick, the floor manager, called her over. He looked nervous. "Maria, I have to cut your shifts, permanently." Maria put down the stack of menus she was holding. "Cut my shifts? All of them?" "I'm sorry. Orders from the owner. He said you're a distraction. He said you're involved in matters that don't concern staff." "It concerns a child who is being bullied," Maria said, her voice clear. Rick held up his hands. "I don't know anything about that. I just know I can't schedule you anymore. If you apologize to Mr. Vandergriff and stay out of his business, he said you can come back." Maria thought of her nursing school tuition. She thought of her rent. Then she thought of Leo's face when he read the legal papers. She straightened her back. "I won't apologize for doing the right thing, and I won't stay out of it." She didn't have an apron to take off. She simply took her small bag from under the service station and walked out. They met Leo that afternoon at a small park near the library. He was waiting on a bench, clutching the folder with the newspaper copies. He saw their faces first. "What happened?" Walter sat heavily on the bench beside him. "I got fired." "Me too," Maria said, sitting on the other side. Leo's face crumpled. He looked down at his hands. "It's my fault. He did this because of me." The guilt was a crushing weight. This was why he tried to do things alone. People who helped him got hurt. "No, Leo," Maria said firmly. "He did this because he's a bully. He did this because we're not scared of him." "But your jobs, your money." "I have some savings," Walter said, though he sounded worried. "And I've been cooking for 40 years. I can find work peeling potatoes somewhere." "I can pick up more hours at the campus library," Maria said. "It won't be easy, but we'll manage." "You should stop helping me," Leo whispered. "It's too much. I can figure it out." Walter turned to look at him. "Listen to me. I was the head chef when your grandmother sold this place. I saw her crying in the office with Vandergriff. I heard his voice. I knew it was wrong, and I did nothing. I told myself it wasn't my problem. That guilt has been sitting in my stomach for 8 years. Helping you isn't your fault. It's my chance to fix what I broke." Maria nodded. "He's trying to make us feel small and alone, but we're not alone. We have each other, and we have the truth. Giving up now means he wins. It means he gets to keep doing this to people." Leo looked from Walter's determined, tired face to Maria's fierce one. They had just lost everything because of him, and they were not walking away. The fear of being a burden wrestled with a new, fragile feeling. Maybe he wasn't one. "Okay," he said, his voice thick. "But I'm going to do something too, to help." "What can you do?" Walter asked gently. "I need to move the real deed," Leo said. "If he's this angry, he might try to find it. It's not safe where it is. I need to put it someplace better." He didn't say where. Some secrets he had to keep. "I need to do it now," Leo said, standing up from the park bench, "before it gets dark." Walter and Maria looked at each other. "Do you want one of us to come with you?" Maria asked. Leo shook his head. "No. If someone sees us, it's worse. It's better if I go alone. That way, if anyone asks, you don't know where it is." Walter sighed, but he understood. He dug into his pocket and pulled out a single key on a ring. "This is my key to the back door. You be fast, and you be careful." Leo took the key. It felt warm and heavy. "I will." The deed was not at the Clark's house. It was hidden in the empty, quiet house where his grandmother had lived. The bank owned it now, but it was still waiting to be sold. Leo knew how to get in through a loose basement window. The house smelled like dust and old memories. He went straight to the attic, to the small trunk. The real deed was inside a plastic bag, inside an old recipe book. He took it out. The paper was so thin and brittle he was afraid to hold it too tight. He put it carefully into the inside pocket of his hoodie and zipped it shut. It was almost 8 o'clock when he got downtown. The streets were quiet. The restaurant looked dark and still. His heart hammered against his ribs as he walked down the side alley to the back door. He looked around. No one was there. He put Walter's key into the lock. It turned with a loud click. He slipped inside and locked the door behind him. The kitchen was pitch black. He felt along the wall for the light switch. A single dim bulb flickered on over the big stainless steel stove. This was the new kitchen, the one Vandergriff had put in. Leo needed the old one. He walked through a narrow door into a back room. This space was used for storage now. Boxes of napkins and cans of tomatoes were stacked against the old brick wall. This was the original kitchen from his great-grandfather's time. Leo walked to the far corner, behind an old, unused freezer. He got on his knees. He ran his fingers over the bricks, counting. 3 rows up from the floor, 5 bricks over from the corner. There it was. One brick felt just a little looser than the others. He dug his fingernails into the old mortar around it. He wiggled it back and forth. After a minute, the brick slid out into his hands. The hole behind it was dark and cool. He took the plastic bag from his pocket. He placed the ancient deed inside the hole. He put the brick back, pushing until it sat flush with the wall. He brushed the dust from his hands. He stood up and looked at the wall. It looked like nothing. Just an old brick wall in a storage room. A deep sense of calm washed over him. The building itself was holding the paper now. It was keeping the secret. He turned off the light and felt his way back to the door. He listened for a long moment before unlocking it and stepping back into the alley. The warm night air hit his face. He looked up at the dark shape of the building against the night sky. For the first time, he didn't just see a restaurant. He saw a fortress. He saw his great-grandfather's work. He saw his grandmother's memory, safe within the bricks. He walked home, the key tight in his fist. The fear wasn't gone. The court papers were still coming. Mr. Vandergriff was still out there. But they couldn't take the deed now. It was home. The morning of the court hearing was gray and damp. Leo wore a clean pair of jeans and a button-up shirt Mrs. Clark had helped him iron. It felt stiff and strange. Walter and Maria met him on the courthouse steps. Walter wore a suit that was a little too tight. Maria wore a simple blue dress. "You ready?" Walter asked, putting a hand on Leo's shoulder. Leo nodded, but his mouth was dry. They walked through the big doors into a hallway that echoed with quiet voices and footsteps. A man waved them over. It was Mr. Sanderson, the lawyer. He had agreed to represent Leo for this first hearing after they showed him the newspaper articles. "This is just a hearing," Mr. Sanderson explained quietly. "The judge will listen to both sides. She will decide if there is enough reason for a full trial. Do not expect a final answer today." They entered the courtroom. It was smaller than Leo expected, with dark wood and a high bench at the front. Mr. Vandergriff was already there, sitting at a table with Mr. Reed. He looked calm and polished. He did not look at them. A bailiff said, "All rise." A woman in a black robe walked in. She was the judge. Her name was Judge Alvarez. She had sharp eyes and a serious face. The hearing began. Mr. Reed spoke first. He stood up and smoothed his tie. "Your Honor, this is a simple case of harassment," he said, his voice smooth. "My client, a respected businessman, is being harassed by a minor with a fabricated story. The document he presents is a copy of a likely forgery. The so-called clause he cites is a dusty relic, unenforceable. We ask the court to dismiss this claim and sanction the minor for wasting the court's time." Judge Alvarez listened, writing a note. Then she looked at Mr. Sanderson. "Your response?" Mr. Sanderson stood. "Your Honor, my client, Leo Finch, is the great-grandson of Alistair Finch. The original deed, which we possess, contains a clear reverter clause. We have evidence that the original sale of this property from Leo's grandmother to Mr. Vandergriff was for a shockingly low price, taking advantage of a sick woman's desperation." Mr. Reed shot to his feet. "Objection! Hearsay and speculation." "I will allow it for context," Judge Alvarez said. "Continue, Mr. Sanderson." Mr. Sanderson placed the copies of the newspaper articles on the clerk's desk. Proof of the building's history under Alistair Finch, and proof of the sale price 8 years ago. $150,000 for a historic riverfront property. This was not a fair deal. It shows why the Finch family needed the protection of the clause. Mr. Vandergriff's jaw was tight. He whispered something to Mr. Reed. Then Mr. Sanderson said, "We also have a witness to the circumstances of that sale. Mr. Walter Henderson." Walter stood up. He walked slowly to the witness stand. He placed his hand on a Bible and promised to tell the truth. He looked scared, but his voice was steady. "You knew the Finch family?" Mr. Sanderson asked. "I worked for Alistair Finch for 10 years, Walter said. "I knew his daughter Eleanor, Leo's grandmother. I was the head chef when she owned the place." "Did you witness the sale of the building to Mr. Vandergriff?" "I did," Walter said. He looked right at the judge, not at Vandergriff. "Eleanor was sick, very sick. She was in the office with Mr. Vandergriff. The door was open. I heard him. His voice was not kind. He said she had no choice. He said the building was falling apart. He said his offer was more than fair. She was crying. I saw her face when she came out. She was defeated." Mr. Reed stood up for cross-examination. "Mr. Henderson, you were an employee, correct? Not a lawyer, not a financial expert." "That's right. So you have no idea what the building's financial situation was. You have no idea what a fair price would be. You just heard a conversation you were not part of from 8 years ago. Is that accurate?" Walter's face flushed. "I know what I saw. I know what I heard." "Thank you. No further questions," Mr. Reed said, sitting down. Judge Alvarez asked a few questions of her own. She asked Leo how he got the deed. He answered in a clear, soft voice. He told her about his grandmother's key in the trunk. After everyone had spoken, Judge Alvarez sat back. "This is a complex matter of property law and contract interpretation," she said. "It is not something I can decide in a hearing. The claim of the minor is not, on its face, frivolous. The validity of the deed and the clause must be examined fully." She looked at both lawyers. "I am ordering a full discovery process. Both sides will share their evidence. I am also ordering the original deed to be submitted to the court for authentication by a documents expert. A trial date will be set." Mr. Vandergriff's face was a mask of cold anger. He had not won. He had not made it go away. As they walked out of the courtroom, Mr. Sanderson managed a small smile. "She didn't throw it out. That's a big win, Leo. Now we have time. Now we build our case." Outside, the gray sky was breaking into patches of blue. Leo felt lighter. The judge had listened. She had taken him seriously. For the first time since he walked into the restaurant, the law was not just a scary word on a paper. It was a door, and Judge Alvarez had just left it open. 3 days after the hearing, a small article appeared in the Baton Rouge newspaper's local section. The headline read, "A boy, a deed, and a downtown battle." Maria brought the paper to the park where they were meeting. She read it out loud. It talked about the court case. It mentioned Leo's age. It mentioned the historic clause. It quoted Walter talking about Alistair Finch. It did not take sides, but it told the story. "People will read this," Walter said, a hint of worry in his voice. The next morning, Leo was walking to the bus stop. An older woman was watering her flowers. She looked up at him. "You're that Finch boy, aren't you?" Leo hesitated, then nodded. The woman gave him a firm smile. "You keep fighting, honey. My husband ate at your great-granddaddy's place every Friday. Good man." Later that day, Walter got a phone call. It was from a man named Ben who owned a small diner called The Griddle on the other side of town. "Walter Henderson? I read the piece in the paper. I heard what happened at Vandergrift's. I need a good short-order cook for the lunch rush. You interested? It's not fancy, but the pay is honest." Walter was quiet for a moment. "You're not worried about making Vandergrift angry?" Ben chuckled on the other end. "He doesn't own this side of the river. Can you start tomorrow?" "Yes," Walter said, his voice thick with relief. "Yes, I can." Meanwhile, Maria was at the community college library studying. Her nursing professor, Dr. Evans, stopped by her table. "Maria, can I have a word?" Maria followed her to her office, her stomach fluttering. "I read about your involvement in this case with the young man," Dr. Evans said, sitting behind her desk. "It speaks to your character. The school has a small hardship scholarship for students showing exceptional community commitment. I've put your name forward. It would cover your books and some fees next semester." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll keep standing up for people," Dr. Evans said with a warm smile. That evening they all met at the Griddle. Ben, the owner, had insisted on giving them dinner. He slid into their booth. "My dad talked about Finch's Landing all the time," Ben said. "Said it had the best pecan pie in Louisiana. This city forgets its history too fast. If there's anything you need, you let me know." As they ate, other people in the diner glanced over. A couple stopped by their table on the way out. "Good luck, son," the man said to Leo. "Rooting for you." Across town in his office, Ellis Vandergrift read the same newspaper article. He crumpled the paper into a ball and threw it into his trash can. His phone rang. It was Mr. Reed. "There's been some public chatter, Ellis. The judge is aware of it. It's softening the ground. We need to be careful." "I don't care about chatter," Vandergrift snapped. "I care about winning. It's becoming a story about a community landmark versus an outsider," Reed said carefully. "You're being cast as the outsider. In a town like this, that matters." "I built this town," Vandergrift said, his voice rising. "They don't see it that way right now. We might want to consider a settlement, offer the boy some money to go away." Vandergrift was silent for a long moment. The idea of paying that boy anything made his blood boil, but he heard the new tone in his lawyer's voice. It wasn't fear, it was strategy, and for the first time the strategy was accounting for something other than money and power. It was accounting for people. "No," Vandergrift finally said, his voice cold. "We don't settle, we crush him. That's how this works." But after he hung up, he sat in his quiet, expensive office. He looked out at the city he thought he owned. For the first time, he wondered if he understood it at all. The battle was no longer just in a courtroom. It was on the streets, in the diners, in the memory of a pie his own father had never gotten to taste. The courtroom was full. This was not like the first hearing. People from the neighborhood were there. Ben from the diner was there. Annette from the library sat in the back. Even Leo's foster parents, the Clarks, had come. Leo sat between Walter and Maria at one table. Mr. Sanderson was with them. At the other table, Ellis Vandergrift sat stiffly with Mr. Reed. Vandergrift did not look at the crowd. "All rise," the bailiff said. Judge Alvarez entered. She sat down and looked at the packed room. "Be seated." She picked up a single sheet of paper. The room was so quiet Leo could hear his own heart. "This has been a difficult case," Judge Alvarez began. "It involves complex property law. It also involves a family's history and a child's future. I have reviewed the original deed, authenticated by an expert. I have reviewed the clause. I have heard all the testimony. She looked at Leo, then at Vandergriff. The law is clear. The reverter clause in the original deed of trust from Alistair Finch is valid. It was a legal contract. Mr. Ellis Vandergriff purchased the property subject to that clause. The presentation of the deed by Leonard Finch on his 12th birthday was valid and timely. Leo held his breath. Walter's hand gripped the edge of their table. Therefore, Judge Alvarez said, her voice ringing in the silent room, I order the title of the property known as the Finch Building on River Road to be immediately transferred back to the Finch family. The claim of Leonard Finch is upheld. A sound went through the crowd, a collective gasp, then a murmur of approval. Maria let out a soft cry and put her hand over her mouth. Walter's shoulders slumped forward in relief. Mr. Vandergriff shot to his feet. Your Honor, this is... Judge Alvarez fixed him with a steady look. You will be seated, Mr. Vandergriff. This is my ruling. Your lawyers may file an appeal if they wish, but as of today, the building belongs to Leo Finch. Vandergriff stood there, his face a storm of fury and disbelief. Mr. Reed gently pulled him back down into his seat, whispering urgently. Judge Alvarez banged her gavel. Court is adjourned. People surged forward. Ben clapped Walter on the back. Annette gave Maria a hug. The clerks hovered near Leo, looking unsure but smiling. Mr. Sanderson beamed. You did it, Leo. You really did it. Across the room, Vandergriff gathered his things. He finally looked at Leo. There was no kindness there, only a bitter defeat. He turned and walked out, not speaking to anyone. Later that afternoon, the three of them stood in the storage room of the restaurant. Leo got on his knees and worked the brick loose. He pulled out the plastic bag. He unzipped it and showed them the ancient, fragile deed. Here it is, he said. Walter's eyes were wet. Welcome home. What do we do now? Maria asked, looking around. Leo took a deep breath. He had thought about this for weeks. We open it again, not as Vandergriff's prime, as Finch's Landing. Walter nodded slowly, a real smile spreading across his face for the first time. I'd be honored to be your chef, Leo. And I don't know anything about running the restaurant, Maria said. But I can learn. I can help. Leo looked at them, the tired old chef and the brave nursing student. They had lost their jobs for him. They had stood by him. They were not his family by blood, but they were something just as strong. Okay, Leo said. He touched the smooth river rock in his pocket, thinking of his grandmother. Then he put his hand on the old brick wall. Then let's get to work. The building was quiet, but it no longer felt empty. It felt like it was waiting. For the smell of food Walter would cook. For the sound of people Maria would welcome. For the future Leo never thought he could have. The war was over. The work was just beginning.